Good morning, my collective, and welcome back to the channel and to another installment here at the Soulify Group. If this is your first time with us, the Soulify Group has devoted its programming to living the purposeful life of the spiritual life, spiritual awakening, how to heal yourself, and how to move forward in purpose, and how to discover what your purpose, your true purpose is. And so, again, I just want to welcome all those that are tuning in here in the United States, as well as those few that we have around the world that tune in. So we welcome those as well. And from the TikTok platform, we try to put that invitation out there for you. Sometimes we're not so far enough in advance for you to get it. But we welcome all of you, especially the LGBTQ plus community. We welcome you as well. And again, I just wanted to remind you, you're all welcome. You're all welcome to comment. No matter what walk of life you come from, or what you resonate with, whether you're a Christian, or you may follow the Buddhist teaching, you may be a Muslim, or you may be agnostic, atheist, or you may not follow any teaching, and that's perfectly okay too. We're not here to change your core belief system. We're just here to encourage you to become spiritually awake and to start that healing process, and then move forward. Why are you here? What's your purpose, right? And so again, I want to welcome all of you. I'm so happy all of you have dropped by that have. And again, if you like our channel, think about subscribing and liking the different videos. And if not, I'm not one that's going to keep begging you to do that, because we're here for a simple reason. We're not here to make money from YouTube exactly. I mean, if we do make money, then we try to reinvest it back into the community, and we're here to spread the good news that you can, live that purposeful life. So you'll never hear us on the campaign to, listen for 6 seconds, or don't scroll, and so forth and so on. Okay, because that's totally up to you. Okay, let's get started with our installment video today. And just as a programming note, sometimes we may not have videos. Sometimes they may be shorts, or it could be, an interactive video, just like we're planning on doing this big energetic how to manage your energy, and which is going to be a 2-part interactive program, where we're going to actually have some in the audience, as well as you out there listening. You're going to have the chance to communicate with us through polls and through other means. As soon as we're waiting on some hardware to be installed, and we're very, very excited about that coming up. And it's a much needed topic that we need to do. Okay, so buckle up and let's get started on today's video. And it's actually sort of picking up where we left off on the last one, which was entitled The Call of Your Soul. And if you remember that one, we kind of talked a little bit about the awakening process and then forward. Well, we're going to just continue that subject, because we didn't, there are some principles we want to cover that we didn't get a chance this last time. And so, again, welcome if you're just now joining, if you joined late. This is Dan from the Soulify Group, and if you want to communicate with us in a more secure manner, you can use our soulify861@gmail.com. Okay, and we'll mention that at the end as well. Well, in the scripture in the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 14 and 16, it says, "Awake, thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." And that last part was from verse 16. So today we want to talk about a little bit about redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Now, if you're like I was spiritually asleep, and I believe most of us have been spiritually asleep just by the sheer kind of life that some of us have had. We haven't always been on fire, right, for the Lord or for spirit, source, universe, and you're going to hear me use these terms interchangeably, and whatever you resonate with whatever that higher power is for you. We're not discounting it, but I'm probably not going to mention all the terms each time I mention God. So God, it could be spirit, universe, source, Buddha, whatever it is. I want you to know we're not here to change your core beliefs. So we want to redeem the time because we've been asleep for much of the time, right? We've been living our life out in the world. We've been earning a living, doing the fun things that, we do. And so we find that most of us either are asleep or have been asleep. I know my awakening was 7 years ago, basically. And I'm going to say that was my last awakening because early on in my life, when I was in different, I've researched and lived different, you might say, lives or different, investigated different thoughts of belief, right? And so I found myself asleep. And then, about 7 years ago, the Lord woke me up in a very stark way. And that's actually being chronicled. And as soon as that is my whole life story, that is. And if you're interested, we'll tell you how to get a hold of that. Okay, so we find ourselves asleep, and in Romans chapter 8, I just wanted to mention, we're not going to read the whole text, but when we first awake, we find that there are many things that have been done, I'm going to say in the flesh. There are many wounds that we wake up with. There are many hurts, just a lot of things, interactions with people that didn't go quite right, whether it be, with a relationship. It could be with a relationship with your children, or, maybe you find yourself just, harsh living conditions, like you're homeless, or there's just never enough money and you don't understand why people all around you just use you and abuse you. And so sometimes, we have all of these wounds and many more serious type of issues that we have. And we find that we have to heal those, because until you actually heal the wounds, right, and you are able to sort of move on from the past, because when you first awaken, that's where most people are. They're ruminating in the past. They're up in their head. They don't understand, maybe, like I say, there's many harsh wounds that are deep inside of you, maybe even all the way back to your childhood. And as I had, ever since I can remember, I had a pretty progressive life as far as a lot of wounds and a lot of where I just didn't matter to people and that type of thing. I sort of the black sheep of the family. And I realized many things as I was growing up, a lot of self-limiting beliefs. And we're going to talk about how to get rid of those. Now, I said that I'm not interested in talking about your core beliefs, meaning, what you believe in as far as God, who is your Savior, that type of thing. But many of the self-limiting beliefs that we've had, and those are the things that say, like, you're never going to amount to anything, you're too old, you're too young, nobody's going to listen to you, you're not smart enough, you don't have enough money, you'll never amount to anything. All these things I was told as well. And yes, I did buy into them for quite some time. We have a lot of emotional scars, right? We carry our scars with us, even though we forgive each other and we've been forgiven. But you still carry the scars with you. You still get triggered sometimes. And so these are the kind of things that we need to realize who we are, actually. And in Romans 8, chapter 8, verse 28, and we know that all things work together for good for them that love God, and to them who are called according to His purpose. Okay? Not our purpose, right? There's a difference, right? And so when we first opened up this channel, our very first premiere program was What If I Am the Answer, which delves in deeply into finding our true purpose, our divine purpose, and our destiny, and as well the journey. The journey should be fun. If your journey is not fun, then maybe we need to look at some things and determine where we went wrong on the purpose, right? Well, each one of us have a divine purpose. The reason we're here. Have you ever asked yourself or wondered, why am I here on this planet at this specific time in history? And why is everything falling down around us? As far as world events go, when we look around, we see, problems on every side, right? And I'm not talking so much politically, but I mean the interaction with each other, right? And so what is your purpose? Have you ever discovered what your purpose is? And you may be still asleep spiritually, and that's okay. It's not your fault. But the Lord is calling you, is calling your name. He's knocking on the door of your heart. He's whispering to you. And sometimes we don't hear Him because the noise of the world is clamoring for our attention, right? And so when we wake up, we have to discover a lot of things all at once, right? That at first it's going to seem like a lot of things going on, especially the emotional wounds. And also, we know that we're here for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. It's not just to go from job to job to job to job, right? Just to try to make our ends meet, right? And so as we discover what that purpose is, we find out that our purpose is actually interwoven in our soul, in this beautiful heart space that we call it sometimes. Now, I wanted to sort of distinguish what our soul is and what our body is. So, a lot of people get it wrong. They think that the body is actually the larger entity when it's not. Your soul is actually the larger entity, and your body is actually in your soul, not your soul in your body. So we need to just sort of make that distinction if we can. Sometimes you'll hear me call it your non-physical self, which we're talking about your soul, not the physical body, but the soul that you possess. Your soul is a very big entity. I'll call it, for lack of a better word. Have you ever come out of a door or come out of maybe like a business, the front door of a business, and somebody's like this right there, and you sort of jump back? That's because they're making contact with your soul, your aura, the part of you that's non-physical. Okay, and so it's helpful to understand that as we talk about our purpose, because that beautiful purpose is already interwoven in this heart space, in your non-physical self, in your soul. Your soul already knows exactly, what's going to happen, what your purpose is, how you're going to travel on the journey, right? It's our physical selves. Sometimes we struggle with, I want to know what it is. Unravel it, let it unfold. But as we are discovering what the purpose is, there's something called our comfort zone that we need to step out of, right? And so many times you'll hear us talk about it like taking the leap of faith, into the unknown. And I know that it sounds ominous to say, I'm going to jump out into the unknown, right? And all we're talking about is just that you may be asked to do some things that you're not used to doing, right? Like for me, like young in my life, I was probably, 22, 23 years old. I started being asked to speak publicly. And at first, it was okay. It was a small groups here, small groups there. And then as time progressed, they got larger and larger. Well, one time I had a job that I was the head of a department. And I didn't really realize it, but at the end of every year, we had to give an account to the whole company. The status of our financial status, right? Which meant this was in a production department, and so I found myself speaking to about 2,000 people. Altogether. Now, some sessions were broken up to get everybody in. We had different sessions, right? And so it was televised as far as in the auditorium. We had, video screens, and I had the whiteboard, and we had to, anyway, you talk about someone full of fear and worry and doubt and sweating, and I bet I didn't even know what my name was at that particular time. But I'm just giving you an example. That may be one of the things that I had to jump into the unknown. I had to get up to speed on how to speak to an audience, how to convey it properly. Handouts and all that kind of thing. And so you may be asked to do something unusual or that you just don't have any experience at. Maybe you're pushed or nudged to open a business, like an entrepreneurial thing. Or maybe you're going to open a bakery, or maybe you're going to get up and speak, or maybe you're going to travel around the world and help people. Maybe you're going to, start a charity, a nonprofit. Maybe you're going to, whatever it is. All the unknown means is just that you've never done it and you're not used to it. That's what the unknown is. And all the things that you're comfortable with inside that nice little comfort zone was unknown at one time to you too, like when you were younger, I'm sure. And so that's all the unknown means, but we need to take that leap of faith and trust into the unknown. And so we need to let go of all the fear, all the doubt, worry, anxiety, all the despair, all the guilt. And as we wake up spiritually and you find out that you have all these things in your heart, in your head, things where maybe you've done people wrong, other people have done you wrong, they've injured you in some sort of way, you're not feeling great about life. Well, these things need to be healed, and you need to kind of fix all those things within yourself. And sometimes we call this the dark night of the soul or shadow work. And you hear us talk a lot about light and dark, right? Now, for those people that are going to already be writing to me about you have to have dark, I realize that. When we first wake up, it's not all light, right? In fact, maybe most of it is not light. But as you come to whatever you resonate with, whether that's God, Spirit, Source, Universe, Yahweh, whatever it is that you're resonating with, that higher power is going to guide you, is going to lead you into that area where you can heal all of those things. And yes, sometimes it can be a long process. Sometimes it's a very short process. It just depends on what you wake up spiritually with, what your experiences have been. I can tell you mine was a lot of severe, wounds, a lot of things that I had to reconcile with, a lot of things that I had to, search people from my past and forgive them. And I had to ask for forgiveness as well. And we're going to talk about forgiveness and the part that plays in healing and moving forward, the part that's going to have, and what that's going to do for you when you start healing, when you start being truthful, when you, we want to be totally authentic. So all the masks that humans wear, a mask is something that you put on because you want the world to believe that you're something else than really your soul, your heart, your body feels, right? And so as you let all these things go, and this is the other part I wanted to talk about healing, is there's a lot of things that we have to let go, right? On our new path, as we're waking up spiritually, on our new path, there's certain, could be people, could be places, could be things in our life that we have to let them go. They can't come on our new life with us, right? Maybe they're addictions. Maybe you have a lot of, like everybody does, bad habits or whatever it might be. I know I had to totally change. I had to delete all my old habits and put new ones in. And as you heal and you become this newer person, you become this new and improved person, you're going to find that your old life, as you work with Spirit, Source, and the universe, your old life is going to crumble at some point in time, and that new life that you've co-created. Don't forget that we're co-creators with the universe. We're co-creators with God. Whatever we call in for ourselves, and during that energetic workshop we're going to talk a lot about manifestations, how to bring the manifestations into your current reality. And I want to tell you something that maybe some of you know and maybe some of you don't. This reality that we see with our eyes in this physical world, that is not really our reality. Our reality is in here. And we're going to talk about how to mirror what's in your heart mirrors to the outside, and that's what determines what your reality is. So as we call in the things that we want, the new desires, the rockets of interest, if that's how you want to look at it. So we want to understand it first goes into, the 5D, and then we have to bring it into the 3D, which is our current physical reality that we see here. So we hear a lot of things out here on the internet, on the social platforms, but we want to break it down, and it's very simple. It's very easy, a 3-step process. And I don't want to get too far ahead and take a lot of time on this video, but I hope that you'll watch our schedule and tune in when this workshop occurs. But again, getting back, we want to be totally authentic, honest in all things that we say and all things that we do. We want to be ethical, right? And we want to pattern our life with high ethics, right? Because when we're inauthentic, that's where the masks go on. We're fooling people. We're trying to act a certain way in which we really are a different way. Where sometimes you can be a people pleaser. You shrink down. You shrink yourself back. You tend to quit when the going gets rough, right? All these kind of things come under inauthenticity, but we want to be authentic where those masks fall off. We're who we say that we are all of the time, 100% of the time. So we have to take that leap of faith, and all along the way, I can tell you, we have to keep surrendering. First, you want to acknowledge with love, and surrender the things that need to be let go of or surrendered, and then release those to the universe. Take all that old baggage that you've been carrying around. There's no need to carry all that around. When you wake up, you're going to find all kinds of baggage that you've been carrying around. You can't fit through the doors and fit into the rooms that you need to be in. So I just want to ask you a question. So if God be for us, who can be against us? So many times, and I'm going to give you another little preview on the energetic workshop. Why does fear keep popping up? Why does anxiety, guilt, despair, once we get rid of it or relieve ourselves from it, why does it keep popping back up? It's because of this ego, right? And the ego is good, actually. The ego is a protective entity within ourselves. However, a very put together ego is going to start trying to get you not to change. In other words, that's where the fear, where the doubt, as you start to do new things, as you start to feel different ways, you start that new life that you want to co-create, we find that the ego starts interjecting all these things. Now, you don't want to change that. Now, you don't want to wake up. You don't want to be good to that person or that person. I hear the thing going around the internet right now that says you don't have to forgive anybody. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that here in just a few minutes. All about forgiveness and why we should forgive each other, right? So if God be for us, who can be against us? Now, the last video we talked about, actually 2 videos ago, we talked about putting on the armor of God, right? And what the advantage is of wearing that armor of God. We likened it into actually like a soldier's armor, and then we broke the pieces down and metaphorically what they stand for. Well, we learned that really each other, we are not the enemy like we think. When people do us wrong, we are really not the enemy. So let's look in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12 and discover who actually is the enemy. Because it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And so we find that, unfortunately, these spiritual wickedness in high places attaches themselves many times to individuals, to humans, and then those dark situations are played out to other humans, right? Trying to get you off of your path to God, trying to get you discouraged, or trying to stop you from whatever it, trying to stop you from realizing your true purpose. Okay, so really, the actual humans are not the enemy. The enemy are the demons, the darker, lower entities of this world. And the quicker we understand that, the quicker we know what the antidote is, the quicker we know how to rid ourselves of that. So how do we know who is who? So actually there's something from the biblical standard, which is called the fruits of the Spirit. We know, from the Bible what the fruits of light are and what the fruits of darkness are. Okay? And so we have to be very, very careful. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about one of them, gossip, which is, gossip, backbiting, slander, envy, jealousy, all of these things, right? And we find out that, gossip is a very terrible thing that people do to one another, because it's sort of part of cannibalism. For one thing, is you take someone's character and you pull it apart, and then you stand back, and usually people jeer, laugh, make fun of, poke fun at the people that they've done that to. And usually what they do is they go and get their friends in a big group, and they slander the person, and they're usually lies. I'm not going to say in every case they are, but they usually accuse them of something that's not really going on, and they get more and more people in this circle, okay, as they make up new stories, as they make up different things. Well, as I mentioned, we have to be extremely careful. And Matthew chapter 7, it talks a little bit about that very thing, a little bit about not just gossip and all these things, but when we are attached to the lower, darker entities, the darker fruits of the Spirit come out. And there's something called spiritual blindness that happens when we play with these entities, right? And so we want to first look at Matthew chapter 7 and verse 1, which says, "Judge not that in essence, I'm going to tell you what it says. It says, judge not, because when you judge someone else, you're going to be judged by that same criteria that you dished out, right?" And we see many times that this comes back into fruition. So if I judge you on a bunch of subjective gossip and backbiting, and I slander someone, I'm going to be judged the way I judged them, right? And probably I'm going to have I've already had spiritual blindness, right? So we want to look at what spiritual blindness is, and I think that probably a lot of us have had that from one time or another. And I want to just put this out there that I had several negative comments saying, "Well, who do you think you are? Blah, 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 blah." But all of these messages that I dropped through a video, I'm speaking to myself as well, as speaking to the greater collective, right? And so don't ever think that I'm here in a preachy sort of mode. No, we all have come short, right? We all have been asleep. We all have had mistakes in our life. Many of us. We all have to work through, if you want to call it karma, the biblical standard is what goes around comes around, the golden rule. Treat somebody like you want them to treat you. So I ask, do you want someone to constantly slander you? Do you want someone to sneak around all your platforms, all your social platforms? Excuse me, let me get our light back on here. Okay, sorry about that. So, all these things, remember, we want authentic lifestyles. We want to be authentic to the world. We don't want all that, all the shenanigans that goes around. Okay, so remember, the way you judge someone else, you're going to be judged just like that, using those same standards. And so again, I'm talking to myself as well. So also, we want to find out about this judging situation. So in Matthew chapter 7, a couple verses down from 1, I think it might be 3 or 4, it says, how can we, counsel our brother when we have a mote? How can you pull the mote out of your brother's eye? I'll get it right here in a minute. How can we pull the mote out of our brother's eye when we have a beam covering our own eyesight? We don't even have clear vision. How are we going to tell someone else or try to judge someone else when we can't even see to begin with, right? That's that spiritual blindness right there. And so what is the antidote for that? Well, over in Revelation chapter 3, I believe it's verse 18, if I'm correct. It's 17, 18, somewhere around there. It talks about the Lord says to us, to the church of Laodicea, right? This latter time period since from 1844 forward, it says, I wish you were hot or cold, because if you're hot or cold, I could work with you. I could help you. I could give you what you need. But instead, you're lukewarm. And what are the attributes of the church of Laodicea? They're wealthy. They have everything they need, they think. We all think that we have everything we need. We have a partner. Maybe we have a partner. Some don't. We have a nice car. We have a house up on the hill. We have money in the bank. We have, this, that, and the other. So we find out that we think we don't need God. We don't need spirit, source. We don't need a destiny. We don't need a purpose, right? These are the things, the whole reason why we lay down and we go to sleep spiritually, right? Because we think we don't need that. Why do I need a purpose? I'm doing pretty good, right? So we're spiritually blind and we don't even know it. Well, what's the antidote to that? It talks about in that same verse that ask for the eye salve, that thou mayest see again. Well, so we have to ask, what is the eye salve? We need some ointment to put on our eyes. That reminds me of, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but that reminds me of Saul's road to Damascus. Remember when he was persecuting the Christians, and Jesus, through the angels, called out to him while he was walking on the road to Damascus, why do you persecute me? Why do you persecute me? And so he he laid him down, and sores came on his eyes for 3 days, and he had to stay that way for 3 days until the Lord revived him, relieved him of the scabs over his eyes, changed his name from Saul to Paul, and told him to go to Jerusalem and get with the brethren there, and they would start working together then. Well, getting back to this, what can we do? And it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, if you're an atheist, if you're agnostic, if you're whatever you are. It doesn't matter. The situation is still the same. We need to have spiritual discernment. And this is what the eye salve is going to give us. That by putting this eye salve on, metaphorically, is we're going to be brought over to spiritual discernment, or being able to see spiritually, right? So, and I brought up the example of the gossip, backbiting, slander, but there are many things: judging somebody, doing people wrong, on and on. I just brought up those few examples. You can think, I'm sure, of many things that people do to each other that wound them, that get yourself in this situation. There was a little hymn back when I was I won't say tiny, I was probably 5 or 6 that I learned this, where my parents took me to church, or my mother did, my father didn't go. But and I'm going to tell you the 4 lines that there are. And I actually put it on our channel. I meant for it to be a community post, but it ended up being like a slideshow. And I apologize for that, because it goes off the screen so quick. You have to kind of stop it to read it. But it says, "Open mine eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free." And if we look back it reminds me of so many biblical stories. I think of little Joseph. You know the story of Joseph, where God gave him a purpose, and he showed him many things in a dream. And his brothers, they were really actually half brothers, had the same thing: the gossip, envy, all kind. They tried to unalive him, and they decided, instead of doing that so they wouldn't be guilty of that, they threw him in a waterless, foodless pit, and then ended up, after several weeks of selling him as a slave, and you know the story, he went, Potiphar's wife accused him of trying to have his way with her, and then he went to prison, so forth and so on. So I'm sure when he was thinking about his purpose, we have to have that trust and that faith in the Lord, Almighty God, Source, Spirit, Universe, Yahweh, whatever it is you resonate with, because I'm sure the Bible tells us it was his faith and his trust in the Lord that brought him through. That resilience. You hear me talk a lot about resilience. The point of being able to get back up on the horse when you fall down, right? In order to keep moving, keep going, you see. And so as we look at, I wanted to bring up the example of the children of Israel. The children of Israel were enslaved in Egypt for hundreds and hundreds of years. And finally, the story of Moses and the burning bush. And Moses was to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt and to their own land, Canaan, the promised land, you hear it called. Well, what was the purpose? They couldn't just go from Egypt right over there into Israel. And if you look at a modern day map, you could walk that basically maybe in a day or two by car like in just a couple minutes. Actually, one of the gates of Egypt open up to where the Gaza Strip is, and the Gaza Strip is right there where Israel is today. So why did the children of Israel have to go all around the wilderness for 40 long years? What was the purpose of that? Well, the Lord had to purge some things out of them, right? The Lord had to purge things out of those people, just like He has to purge with us. Not only purging, but refining, pruning, sending us challenges, right? This makes us stronger and stronger, more resilient. It cultivates faith. It cultivates trust, right? So this same experience, don't be surprised that we have to go through that same experience. But the real thing that I wanted to bring up, and it's when you really stop and think about it, when the children of Israel left Egypt, there were 600,000 men, the scripture tells us, and only the men were counted. So when you factor in the women and the children and the babies, and of course they brought all their animals with them, there were over 1 million people wandering around in the wilderness, crossing the Red Sea at Mount Sinai, if you remember, so forth and so on. But how many actually made it into Canaan? How many? Out of over 1 million people, 3 men and their wives, their children, 3. The rest of them perished in the wilderness. Now, why do you suppose that happened in that way? Well, over in Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 19, it says, "So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief." Unbelief. So my brothers and sisters, I want to ask a question. So the children of Israel didn't have the same convenience that we have today. We have Adam and Eve. We can see what happened in that story. We have all the patriarchs, all the prophets, the children of Israel. We have all these things sort of as a continuing education as to what happens when we don't believe God, right? When we don't believe Jesus Christ, when we don't, and whether you resonate, it's okay if you resonate with Buddha, if you resonate with Spirit, Source, Universe, God, Jesus Christ, Yahweh, whatever it is. We've had all of these examples. We've had not only our own lives that we've had, but we've had all down through history for, let's say, about 7,000 years of history we've had to show us what happens when we don't believe. What happens when we don't develop the trust and the faith? Trust and faith are not just a Christian catchphrase, okay, like many people use it to be. Also in Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 16, it says, "Let us therefore come," how? "Boldly, come boldly into the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help us in the time of need." You see, God, universe, source, whoever you resonate with, is not only that higher power of justice, it's also that higher power of mercy, of grace. He freely gives us of faith, mercy and grace We need the grace to be able to change our life. We wake up spiritually, and yes, we have some work to do, right? Now, why should we forgive one another? And I hear this all the time. Oh, you don't need to forgive anybody. It's okay. You just go on with your life. Well, when we have a problem with someone, Matthew chapter 6, and I believe it's verse 14, it says, "For if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." And it also says, "If you don't forgive men of their trespasses, I will not forgive you as well." So you see, now let's get down to the basics here of forgiveness. Now, if you do something against me, transgress against me, I'm still going to forgive you. You want to know why? Because I want us to be okay, to be together as far as whatever happened, right? Yes, we still have to carry the scars of whatever the situation was. That's not going to go away. And it may not be me that transgressed against you, but usually, it's a double-sided thing. Usually there's two sides to every story, right? And so when we forgive our fellow man, woman, child, whatever it is, we are released. The scripture says we're released from that mistake. Okay? We're released from that. And then we can be healed. That wound can be healed then, regardless whether that other person does or not. I know I took great pains when I first awakened spiritually myself. I actually traveled places to find people to say, "Hey, that thing that happened? I am really sorry. I'm really sorry that happened. I don't know what I was thinking or whatever the situation is." And the people I could not find, in the spirit, I had to forgive them. I had to, and many times over, I'll say, not just once, many times over. And so then God, Spirit, Source, Universe, they know that you did all that you could do. You did all that you could do to clear the air around you. But as I was saying, normally, usually every wound, well, not every wound, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that, but many times, a lot of the times, it's a two-way street, but sometimes it's one-sided. I'm thinking of, I had 2 SA incidents in my life, in my childhood, and I don't think I did anything to, to prompt that, but I forgave that man that did that to me, and he hurt me very badly, not just physically, but emotionally. It took me a long time, to understand, what happened there. And then it happened again. But I'm not here to bring, to even talk to you about it. I'm just saying there are some instances where it could be one-sided, but it's always best to still go and forgive the person and release yourself. It releases you. You can move on. You can be healed. You can move on to the next thing and have that glorious purpose. Find out what that interwoven, and I can promise you guys, this purpose, you're gonna want to do it. You're gonna want to do the thing. You're gonna want to come out of your comfort zone. Back years and years ago, I had never owned a business, and now I can say I've successfully ran two businesses, and I went out of business in one and sold the other one. But yes, there are things you can step out of your comfort zone, and there. The Lord will always lead you to the people that can physically help you. If you need to know how to start a business, call us, call somebody. If you need to, whatever it is, if you need to know how to heal yourself, call someone. This collective is a grand, beautiful collective. And I want to stop right here for just a second. And I want to tell all the light workers and all the chosen ones how very proud I am of you. How I can see the energy is rising, rising, rising. I can feel it, and I know you can too, those of you that are in tune with your own energy. So getting back to our divine purpose, when we understand about our energy, our vibrations, our frequency, the magnetism, we see that it not only helps us, but it helps everyone. It has that rippling effect. So, yes, when we first wake up, we're going to have light and dark, but we should want the light. That's what it means in Matthew chapter 5, I believe, verse 17. It says, "You are the city set on a hill. You are the light. Why light a candle when your power goes out at home? Do you light the candle and then put something over top of the candle? No. No, you want the whole room to be filled and flooded with light. Same way here. Why would you purposely choose the darkness? You're not going to see the light if it's completely dark. Yes, when you first wake up, yes, I agree with everyone. You have light and dark. That's why Jesus says, "Come to me as you are." Don't try to make yourself better, because we don't have the power to do that, right? Only God, Spirit, Source, Universe, whoever you resonate with, Yahweh. So find out what that divine purpose is. God has promised to help you redeem the time. In Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, I believe it is, the Lord tells us, don't be conformed to this world. Be ye transformed, what? By the renewing of your mind. This mind needs to be renewed. When we first wake up and we start healing, many people are stuck up here in their head. And guess what goes around and around? They ruminate over the past, all the woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of thoughts, all the negative emotions, all the unwanted thoughts, feelings. I'm telling you, what we need, and I dropped a lot of videos on this subject about awareness, mindfulness, the triggers, how to avoid the triggers, but be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable, the perfect will of God. Do you want to know what the will of God is? It's that you understand what your purpose, your divine purpose, and that you can move step by step by step. And He's holding your hand the entire time. And whoever you resonate with is. I'm not trying to lead you to one power or the other. And in Romans chapter 8, we have to understand the sacrifice that Jesus made, right? We have to understand what Jesus did at Calvary for each one of us. He made it possible. Well, let me back up. This battle that we're in, and we all agree, I think, that we're in a spiritual battle. It's the great controversy, right? Good and evil, right? But in Romans chapter 8, verse 32, it says, "He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for" who? "For all of us. How shall he not with him also freely give us all things?" What do you think that God can't do for us? What is it? Why do we want to stay asleep? Why do we choose all the low vibrational, dark side of things? The victory's already been won. Okay? After Calvary, Jesus was our redemption. He bought us back, right? From all the things that we want to do but we shouldn't do, right? He bought us back from all that. Right? And here God himself is saying he spared not his own son. Do you not think that God would give you what you need? Well, when Jesus was on Calvary, and I'm not going to tell the whole story because I didn't want to take so much time on the video. I always try to keep it less than an hour, but I see I'm not making it this time unless I edit part of it. But it's okay. I think that sometimes extra time needs to be taken. But, when God uttered the words, "It is finished," that banished Satan for good. That banished all the evil entities for good. But you know what? It's us that don't realize it. Many of us don't realize that God's already won the battle. He's cleared the path for us to travel, right? But there's that thing again that comes up: trust and faith. Faith and trust in the Almighty, whether that be Spirit, Source, universe, Buddha, whatever teaching that you follow is fine. But I'm just here to say, the victory's already been won. And that experience on Calvary, it's hard for me to talk about without shedding a lot of tears, because I realize that he did that for me. And that's what you should be saying about yourself. He did that. He went through all that for me. He was beaten. He was tortured. He was jeered basically his whole adult life, right? And when he hung on that tree, he did it for us. He thought about you and me above all other things. That's what he had in his mind. And then he died. But then he rose again is the good story, is the good part of the story. Victory was not just for Jesus, it was for all of us. All of us. My brothers and sisters, we need very much. We need very much to go back in our minds, all the things that God has done for us, and whether you call that Spirit, Source, Universe, Yahweh, whoever it is, think of all the times in your life. And if you're like I am, I'm older, so I've got more to look at, right? I can tell you all the horrific things in my life that have happened to me. I shouldn't even be here before you even being able to talk to you. I was almost unalived twice, poisoned once, and that's not even getting started. That's just the introduction, right? So, but what I'm trying to say is Spirit and Source, Universe never, God never left my side, even when I was asleep, even when I didn't even acknowledge him. And there was a time that happened. Even when I didn't acknowledge him, my angels never left me. They always protected me. God never left me, never left my side. Guys, all I'm asking you to do, and again, this video isn't just for you, it's for me too. It's for me. We all have some things to think about. We all have a work to do. We all have our own purpose. You know, stop comparing yourself to everybody else. You have your own path. If you could only see, and I'm going to close, I promise. If you could only see how magnificent your soul is, how magnificent you were created, the things that you have in here, did you know that inside of you, inside this heart space, all the answers are already there? You don't have to go to the outside for them. They're already there. You just have to communicate with your soul, you know, whether that's prayer, meditation, maybe you chant, you know, ground yourself spiritually, you know, have that meaningful worship with whoever you resonate with, whoever that is. Don't ignore your spiritual practices. Keep them going. I believe I'm a big believer in journaling as well, plus my spiritual practices. So, you know, take a walk in nature. Oh my goodness, it would kill me if I couldn't be out in nature. And anyway, we're going to close. We're going to leave it there. But I hope that you were blessed. I hope you picked up something maybe that you didn't realize before. Maybe it will prompt you to take a look at your life. You know, where you're at now. Where do you want to be? What are your goals? If you need help finding your true purpose, give us a call. Write us soulify861@gmail.com. You know, I do these not because I'm making lots of money, because I'm not. But I do it to get the message out there. I do it because I love each one of you. When I think about this collective, when I look out, when I'm out in public and I see like a large amount of people, whether it's in the store or, you know, coming out of a subway or whatever it is, you know, I always wonder what their walk of life is. Are they awake? Are they, and many times I can sense the energy, you know, but I do this because I love each and every one of you, and we all can have that purpose, that purposeful life. We can all wake up and be healed and move on and have a wonderful life. Okay, I love you again. And until the next video, it's Dan coming to you from the Soulify group. And I will see you guys on the next video.